The world above had burned. Skyscrapers collapsed in silence. Streets once filled with honking horns and hurried footsteps now echoed only with groans. The cities, the pride of humanity, were nothing more than graveyards of glass and steel, crawling with the undead. But 30 people still breathed. And they lived underground. Mara adjusted the dim headlamp strapped to her forehead, sweat trickling down her temple as she crouched through a narrow maintenance tunnel beneath the old metro station. Behind her, Jax followed, dragging a battered cart filled with salvaged supplies, canned food, water filters, batteries. "This tunnel wasn't on the map," Jax whispered. "It's not supposed to be," Mara replied. "That's why we're still alive." They had been living below for 72 days. After the final collapse of the surface defenses in New Chicago, a small resistance force, mostly engineers and medics, had escaped through a forgotten ventilation shaft beneath the city's collapsed civic hall. They tunneled. They mapped. They hid. And they waited. In the control chamber, a converted junction room lit by solar-charged LEDs, the rest of the survivors gathered. Pipes groaned above them. The walls sweated moisture. It was no paradise. But it was shelter. Hector, the eldest and former city planner, marked their movement on a faded infrastructure blueprint. Sector G collapsed yesterday. The creatures have started sniffing through storm drains. "We're running out of safe corridors," said Priya, her voice sharp with anxiety. "If they break into Line 4, we lose access to the freshwater tanks." Mara tossed her pack down. "Then we don't wait. We push back." A heavy silence followed. Jax looked up, blinking. "You're serious? We've been hiding while they take more ground every day. The cities are gone, sure. But we're not." Mara wasn't always a leader. She'd once been a transportation officer, a glorified subway mechanic. But when the world turned to rot, and most of the brass either died or fled, it was the ones with dirty hands who made a stand. She had a plan. One tunnel at a time, they would reclaim the underground. Not to win back the cities, not yet. But to build a network. A system the undead couldn't track. An underground resistance. That night, she met with Hector and Priya in the power node room, above the old turbine system. "There's a backup generator in Tunnel 7, she said, laying out hand-sketched blueprints. "If we reroute the wiring from the main line, we can light 3 sectors. Give us safe zones. Places we control." Priya frowned. "The noise will attract them. Only if we mess it up." Hector sighed. "You realize what this means? No more hiding. We take a stand. We take our home," Mara corrected. At dawn, they moved. The team was split into 3 squads: scouts, technicians, and guards. Everyone had a job. Jax and Priya led the scouts. Their job: clear out the tunnel to the generator. Silent kills only. If even one zombie screamed, the entire grid could flood with infected. Mara stayed with the tech team, rerouting cables and patching ancient fuse panels. Sparks lit the tunnel like lightning. Sweat mixed with grime. But every flicker of light felt like hope. Then, it all went wrong. A scout screamed. Gunfire echoed. "Seal that hatch!" Mara shouted. Too late. A horde burst through the north corridor, grotesque and fast, their limbs warped from crawling through twisted steel and sewage. These weren't the slow, dragging types. These were feral. Underground evolved. Jax fired until his rifle clicked empty. Then drew his knife. Mara yanked down a lever, powering the emergency flood doors. Massive iron slabs slammed shut just in time, separating them from the wave. But not before 2 guards were dragged away screaming. In the silence that followed, the cost of Defiance settled in. "They were waiting," Priya said quietly. They knew. Mara nodded, her voice hard. They're adapting. Just like we are. Hector ran a trembling hand through his hair. If they know the tunnels. Then we change the map, Mara said. We carve our own. And we make damn sure we're the ones using it. She looked over the new generator, now humming low. The lights flickered on in 3 tunnels. A win. Small, but theirs. That night, they buried their fallen in the dry cistern beneath the station. A silent ceremony. No prayers. Just a promise. They would not die hiding. The undead had taken the cities. But they hadn't taken everything. Because beneath the ruins, 30 humans still remembered what it meant to fight. And the real war? It had just begun. The tunnels never slept. Even in silence, the underground was alive, pipes groaned, steam hissed, distant thuds echoed like footsteps. For the last 30 survivors, it was more than home. It was the last battlefield. And tonight, the walls bled. Mara paced near the reinforced door to Sector 7. The new generator buzzed faintly, bathing the corridor in a sickly green glow. 3 tunnels now had steady power. But the cost, 2 fighters lost during the last push, still lingered like smoke in everyone's lungs. Jax approached, bandaged arm tucked tight against his chest. They're not just scavenging anymore, he said quietly. They're hunting. Coordinated. Focused. Mara looked at him. We knew it was coming. The moment we lit that first bulb, we told them where to find us. He gave a bitter grin. Then maybe we should stop giving them invitations. Down in the old filtration shaft, Priya and her tech crew were reinforcing a bulkhead. They'd converted the circular tunnel into a fallback safe zone, lined with scrap metal, steam traps, and pressure alarms rigged from repurposed circuit boards. Priya adjusted a series of makeshift motion sensors. If they're adapting, so are we, she told her crew. From now on, every tunnel we hold gets traps, flares, and sound channels. One of the younger survivors, Milo, raised a hand. Sound channels? Priya smiled grimly. We play audio loops, footsteps, shouting, crying, into false corridors. Lure them into dead ends. Let the tunnels turn against them. But even the best traps couldn't prepare them for what came next. Just past midnight, a low rumble vibrated through the pipes. Hector, asleep near the generator, woke first. Earthquake, he muttered groggily. Then came the scream. Not human. Not even close. A shriek that rattled bone, coming from the deepest tunnel, line 12, collapsed, unmapped, and long sealed. Mara, Jax, and Priya arrived at the same time, weapons drawn. The sealed hatch to line 12 had burst outward, blown off its hinges like paper. Black residue clung to the edges. The smell, rot, metal, and ozone. They broke out? Jax whispered. No, Priya said. They were let out. Mara turned to her. You think someone opened it? She hesitated. I think someone, or something, was waiting behind it. They advanced slowly into line 12. This tunnel was different. The walls were scorched. Old claw marks were carved deep into the concrete, patterns, almost symbols. And something had been nesting here. Milo gagged as he stepped into a chamber littered with bones. Human bones. Laid in spirals. Arranged deliberately. Priya scanned the walls with her headlamp. What is this? Jax looked grim. This wasn't just feeding. This was ritual. Back at their central junction, Hector worked fast to remap the tunnel system. He marked line 12 in red. We seal that place off, he insisted. We're not ready to fight whatever came from there. But sealing it wasn't easy. Something had triggered a chain collapse, gas pockets ruptured, ventilation routes shifted. They had less time than they thought. The next night, Sector 3 went dark. The generator still ran. Power lines were intact. But the lights, gone. Mara sent a recon team. Only 2 returned. Shaken. Bleeding. Silent. They couldn't speak until morning. One of them, a woman named Elise, finally whispered, "It watched us." Watched? Mara leaned in. Elise nodded. It was tall. Pale. Its eyes, not dead. Burning. It didn't attack. It just stood there. Mara tightened her grip on her pistol. "We're not just dealing with the infected anymore." Priya frowned. "This thing, whatever it is, it's using the undead." "Like soldiers?" Milo asked. "Like pawns," Jax answered darkly. That night, the survivors voted. Some wanted to retreat deeper into the tunnels. Others argued to return to the surface, no matter the risk. But Mara stood in the center of the room and raised her voice. "We are not rats. We are not prey. We are the last 30 for a reason. We are the ones who didn't fold. We didn't run. We build. We fight. And we adapt." She paused, staring around the circle of exhausted, frightened faces. If this thing thinks it owns the tunnels, then it's time to remind it who built them. Priya activated the first sonic lure that night, broadcasting an endless loop of screaming into an abandoned maintenance shaft. Then they waited. Minutes passed. Then a thud. A snarl. Then silence. When Mara opened the camera feed, she saw it. A shape. Tall. Human-like. Standing perfectly still. Listening. Then, it turned its head slowly toward the lens. And smiled. The image haunted them. That thing, tall, lean, almost human, standing in the shadows of the maintenance shaft, staring straight into the lens. Not lunging. Not snarling. Just, smiling. It vanished from the camera feed seconds later. No one slept that night. In the central hub, the remaining 30 survivors gathered, the tension in the air thick as the underground heat. The walls felt closer. The tunnels darker. Mara played the camera footage again on a grainy screen. The creature's face was too distorted to recognize, but the emotion behind the expression? It chilled every person watching. "It knew we were watching," Priya said. "It wanted us to see it." Jax crossed his arms. "We've fought the undead for months. Nothing has ever smiled." Hector, standing near a dusty rack of old city maps, spoke with a tremor in his voice. "It's not a zombie. It's something else." Mara nodded slowly. "It's watching. Learning. Maybe even planning." For the first time since they went underground, doubt crept into their camp. Some whispered that the tunnels were cursed. Others believed that the undead were evolving beyond human understanding. But Mara refused to bend. She knew one truth: fear was as deadly as any bite. And if they didn't act fast, fear would kill them before the creature ever reached their doors. Priya and Milo worked together to enhance the surveillance network. They rewired cameras, connected motion sensors, and even reactivated a long-abandoned station platform with solar-fed lights. The plan was simple: draw the creature in, observe it, and gather intel. But simple plans never stay simple in a world ruled by the dead. On the second night, a motion alert triggered near Sector 4, the food storage corridor. Jax and 3 others responded fast. What they found was strange. The metal door to the storage unit wasn't broken, clawed, or kicked in. It was unlocked. Inside, all the food was untouched. But drawn onto the concrete floor in thick, smeared black fluid were strange looping symbols, unlike anything anyone recognized. And at the center of it all, a single human tooth. Clean. White. Fresh. Milo's hands shook as he examined the symbols. "I've seen something like this," he said. "When I was on recon with Priya near line 12. Scratches in the walls. Same patterns." "Is it a language?" Jax asked. Priya knelt beside the largest mark. "If it is, it's not for us." The next day, morale dropped. 2 survivors requested to leave, to try their luck on the surface. Mara refused. "You leave this network, you're dead in hours." But privately, she understood. The enemy they now faced wasn't just zombies. It was something else. Something smarter. And worse, it knew exactly where they were. That night, Hector pulled Mara aside. "I think I know where it's coming from." She raised an eyebrow. "There's an old experimental subtunnel, never listed on public records. It was sealed off decades ago. During my time with the city, rumors floated about illegal biological tests, cold storage vaults, forgotten labs." Mara tensed. "You think that thing came from a lab?" "I think whatever the world was trying to contain, it failed. They prepared a scouting team immediately. Mara, Jax, Milo, and Priya. Armed with flashlights, oxygen packs, and silenced weapons, they followed Hector's hand-drawn map through a maze of forgotten tunnels. The deeper they went, the more unnatural the air felt, stale, but warm, like something alive was breathing just beyond the walls. Finally, they reached it. A massive vault door embedded in the stone, half-rusted but still sealed. A faded logo across its face read, "Section 0, Classified." Priya connected a portable power pack to the control panel. Sparks flew. Lights flickered. The door groaned open 2 inches, and then stopped. Through the gap, they saw only darkness. But what came through that gap was a whisper. Not in English. Not in any human tongue. But they all heard it. In their minds. A message. A warning. Or maybe, an invitation. Milo stumbled back. "We shouldn't be here." Jax raised his rifle. "We're already here." They returned to base in silence, sealing the vault behind them. But something had followed. That night, the camera feeds glitched again. And in Sector 3, just for a split second, the same pale figure stood beside the emergency light. Closer now. Smiling wider. No one questioned it anymore. This wasn't a regular war for survival. Something had changed. The zombies still roamed the surface, hungry and relentless. But underground, something older stirred. Mara stood before the vault's crude map, red markers scattered across it like drops of blood. She circled one name over and over, Section 0. She turned to Priya, voice tight. "It's the source. That vault, whatever came out of it, it's bleeding into everything. The patterns, the creature, even the tunnels. Like veins." Priya nodded. "And we've only scratched the surface." Jax leaned on the table. "So what do we do? Keep hiding? Or do we cut this thing out?" Hector, stepping into the room with soot on his sleeves and fear in his eyes, answered quietly, "Then you'd better see what we found in the secondary shaft." The secondary shaft wasn't on any official map. It had collapsed decades ago, forgotten during the city's last major metro expansion. But now the survivors used it as a fallback tunnel, until that morning, when 2 maintenance scouts never came back. Hector led Mara and the others through narrow pipes, past rusted doors and walls damp with decay. Then he stopped at a breach in the concrete. Through it, they saw something that didn't belong. A chamber, massive, circular, and metallic, buried beneath the city like a sunken heart. It pulsed faintly. Vines of black organic matter spread from the walls, pulsing with some form of inner light. Like nerves. Or roots. Priya whispered, "It's not just a creature. It's part of something larger. It's growing." Jax's mouth tightened. "This isn't evolution. This is a system." They slowly stepped inside. Symbols covered the walls, ancient but organized. Machinery fused with bone. Crates filled with samples marked Bio-class red. And in the center of the chamber stood a half-broken pod, shattered from the inside. Milo found a video log embedded in the terminal. The file, damaged and degraded, played one final message from a long-dead scientist. Project failed, the host resisted protocol, it learned, adaptive cognition exceeded safety parameters. If it escapes containment, burn it. Burn everything. The video cut to black. Back at camp, panic spread like wildfire. "We can't fight this," one woman cried. "We're just 30 people. We should have left when we had the chance," yelled another. Mara climbed onto a platform of stacked crates and raised her voice. "We're not leaving. Not yet." The room hushed. "We've lived this long because we adapted. Because we outsmarted the monsters above. And now there's a greater one below. But it's not invincible. It was created. It has limits." She held up a small vial from one of the crates. "And this? This is proof it can die." Priya analyzed the contents of the vial. Inside was a thick, crimson serum, biological, active, unstable. "A weapon?" Jax asked. "Maybe," she replied. "Or a trigger. Whatever it is, it reacts violently to that organic matter down there." Mara stared at the readings. "Can we reproduce it?" "Not in quantity. But we can amplify it. If we connect it to the central steam line, we can flood the lower tunnels. Burn everything biological." Hector looked pale. "We'll be burning part of the underground network. Including our fallback tunnels." Mara nodded. "Then we don't fall back. We go forward. We burn the past to protect the future." The team split into 3 groups. Jax and Hector handled the explosives. Priya and her engineers modified the steam systems to carry and spread the serum. Mara prepared a mobile unit to lure the creature back to the chamber. They didn't sleep. They didn't speak unless necessary. They only worked. The plan had to be perfect. But the creature knew something was happening. That night, it didn't wait in the shadows. It attacked. It came during the final hour of setup, Sector 2, the control room. The alarms never triggered. Cameras shorted. Lights flickered. Then silence. When Mara arrived, half the sector was dark. Blood smeared the walls. 2 bodies were missing. One survivor, a boy named Ray, was curled into a corner, eyes wide. He walked past me," Ray whispered. "Looked right at me, and let me live." "Why?" Milo asked. Ray's voice cracked. "Because he wanted me to watch. They were running out of time." Priya gave the signal, the steam lines were ready. Jax had armed the charges. All they needed now was to draw the creature into the chamber. Mara volunteered without hesitation. "I started this fight. I'll finish it." Jax looked at her. "You sure?" "I'm not letting the last 30 become the last memory." She took the bait, a powered core laced with the serum and set on a motion trigger. The moment it detected heat or movement, it would release a scent detectable by the creature, something it couldn't ignore. She placed it deep in the old tunnel, then stepped back into the dark. And waited. A breath. A whisper. Then, she saw it. The creature. Closer than ever before. Eyes like molten fire. And it wasn't alone. Behind it, dozens of infected, silent, standing still, as if waiting for a command. The real war hadn't even begun. Mara didn't move. Not even when the creature stepped closer, its bone-white feet silent against the tunnel floor, its burning eyes locked on her. Behind it, the infected stood still, like puppets waiting for a signal. But Mara wasn't afraid. Not now. The scent bomb was ticking. Just a few steps closer. The creature tilted its head, curious. It didn't snarl. It didn't lunge. It studied her, like a predator wondering why its prey was standing still. Then the core hissed. A faint cloud of reddish vapor escaped into the air. The creature flinched. And that was all she needed. Mara turned and ran. Her boots slammed against the concrete as the tunnels echoed with low growls, dozens of them. The infected had broken from their trance. The chase had begun. Back at the main hub, Priya's voice crackled through the radio, "We see movement. 30, 40, maybe more. It's working." Jack stood at the control panel near the serum injectors. "Just get her to the chamber." Mara didn't look back. She knew they were close, so close she could feel the air behind her grow colder with every step. One wrong turn. One misstep. That's all it would take. But she kept going. Left past the flood pipe. Down the rusted stairwell. Through the breach in the secondary shaft. And then, she saw it. The chamber. Jax, Milo, and 2 others were already in position. The core had drawn them straight into the heart of the trap. Mara crossed the chamber threshold. "Do it," she shouted. Priya pulled the main lever. High above, the steam lines groaned. Valves twisted open with a shudder, and red mist hissed into the tunnels like venom through a snake's fangs. Within seconds, the infected began to scream, shrieks like tearing metal echoing through the stone. Their skin blistered. Eyes melted. Limbs convulsed. But the creature. It walked through the mist like it was nothing. Jack stared, stunned. "It's not reacting." Milo checked his scanner. "It's not dying, it's changing." The serum wasn't burning it. It was feeding it. The creature's spine arched as its body contorted. Bones shifted under skin. Its face, once almost human, twisted into something more monstrous, more alien. Long claws erupted from its fingers. And then, it let out a sound. Not a scream. Not a roar. A signal. All across the tunnels, the infected that had fallen began to twitch again. Some stood back up. Burned. Scarred. But moving. The serum wasn't a poison anymore. It was an upgrade. Back at the control center, Priya watched the monitors in horror. They're adapting. It's mutating them. Jack's backed toward the tunnel entrance, dragging Mara with him. "We've got to get out. Now." Milo planted the final explosive charge at the center of the chamber floor. This was never going to be easy. "We blow the entire chamber, bury it all." Mara hesitated, eyes locked on the creature. "You sure it's enough?" "It has to be." They ran. The creature didn't chase them. It simply stood there, watching, as the countdown ticked. 10. 9. 8. They reached the breach. 7. 6. Mara looked back one last time. The creature raised one arm toward her. And smiled. 5. 4. They cleared the final tunnel turn. 3. 2. 1. The ground erupted. Flames shot through the shaft. The shockwave knocked them off their feet. Dust and heat roared through the underground network like a demon's breath. The chamber was gone. Everything inside it, crushed beneath rock and fire. Silence followed. Then coughing. Mara rolled over, gasping, lungs burning with smoke. Jax's voice rasped, "Everyone alive?" One by one, they answered. 7 of them had made it back. The rest were still unaccounted for. Back at the base, the remaining survivors gathered in stunned silence. Some cried. Others just stared. They had destroyed the chamber. But they hadn't destroyed the creature. It had changed. And no one knew how deep its roots went. Mara met Priya's eyes. "How many of them did we lose?" Priya looked at the floor. 6 in the blast. "For more, we haven't found their signals." Jax clenched his jaw. "They were taken." Milo stepped forward. "I found something in the logs before the detonation. A protocol buried in the lab's core database. A failsafe, maybe." He pulled up a screen, an encrypted file marked only with one word, "Recall." "What is it?" Mara asked. "Not sure. But it mentions coordinates. An old site, somewhere outside the city. A secondary facility. Another lab? Or a backup host," Milo said quietly. The room went silent. Then Mara spoke, calm but steady, "We're not done. If this thing has another body, another source, we find it. We finish it." Jax nodded. "Then we take the fight above ground." Outside, the city remained silent. Its buildings broken. Its streets still. But under that silence, something moved. Not just one creature. Not just one threat. A network. A new kind of enemy. One that had survived the end of the world, and was now preparing to reshape it. Daylight had become a stranger. The sun, when it appeared, felt weaker now, its light filtering through ash-filled skies, unable to push back the creeping darkness. The city was a skeleton of its former self, hollow and hungry. The 30 survivors, now fewer than 20, emerged from the underground tunnels into the devastated surface. They hadn't breathed open air in months. But the world above hadn't healed. It had worsened. Buildings leaned at unnatural angles, as if something had burrowed beneath them. Roads were split, like they'd been ripped open by claws. And there was silence, no birds, no wind, no signs of life, or unlife. Until they reached the old military checkpoint near Sector Echo. That's where they found them. Bodies. Fresh ones. Not torn apart. Not bitten. Laid out, peacefully. Hands crossed. Eyes open. All staring upward. Mara knelt beside one. The skin was pale, drained, but not like a typical infection. "No trauma," Priya said quietly. "No signs of a struggle." "Then what killed them?" Jax asked. Milo checked a nearby motionless drone with a blinking red light. "They didn't die," he said. "They were emptied." "What do you mean emptied?" Mara asked. Milo lifted the drone's sensor feed. It showed a blur of heat, as if something touched the victims moments before they died, and then gone. Like their energy had been drained in an instant. Jax looked toward the skyline. "This isn't just infection anymore. It's possession." The new plan was simple: follow the coordinates from the recall file. Whatever the creature was hiding, or building, it would be there. A research facility outside the city, in a region known only as the Quiet Ring. They moved fast, traveling through underground access routes and collapsed metro bridges. Along the way, they saw no zombies, no resistance, only the signs of something greater passing through. Symbols carved into overpasses. Trees grown in unnatural spirals. Echoes of whispers that didn't belong to any living voice. They reached the outskirts of the Quiet Ring by nightfall. It wasn't quiet. It screamed. Not in sound, but in feeling. The air was thick, almost vibrating, and every step made their skin crawl. It was like walking into a pressure chamber with no exit. Then they saw it. A dome-shaped facility half buried in the earth. Its entrance covered in vines, steel peeled back like melted wax. Whatever was inside hadn't been touched in years, but something had opened it recently. Inside, the lights flickered on as they stepped through the threshold. Automated systems kicked in. "Welcome, Dr. Ilara Lynn," a synthetic voice echoed. Everyone froze. "No one here is Ilara Lynn," Mara whispered. Priya shook her head. "This place thinks someone returned. And I think I know who." They walked through pristine hallways, untouched by chaos. Computers still hummed. Doors responded to voice commands. And then they reached a vault marked Project Transmutation. Jax tried the console. Locked. Milo plugged in his data slate and began decoding. "What is transmutation?" he muttered. "Something that wasn't meant to evolve, did." The vault opened. And inside was the truth. Dozens of pods, all empty, except one. The final pod was cracked open, its inside coated in a dark residue, like dried blood mixed with ash. And nearby, a screen playing a looped video. "They were never meant to survive independently," said a tired woman, Dr. Ilara Lynn. "The carriers were to deliver a controlled mutation to dead tissue only. No brain function. No learning. But the specimen they called Subject Zero evolved. It waited. Learned. Hidden the code, and now it's rewriting everything. It believes it is life now. And it sees us as its infection." The survivors were silent. Mara's voice cracked. "So what we fought down there wasn't even the original?" "No," Priya whispered. "It was the child. The first successful generation. And now it's free," Jax added. Milo turned to another console. "There's one final failsafe. If we activate this, the entire region gets scorched from above. Satellite-linked orbital strike." Priya raised a brow. "And the cost?" "Everything within a 10-mile radius." Mara stared at the screen. "Including us." Suddenly, the lights cut out. A hiss echoed through the vents. And a voice filled the room, not from the speakers, but from inside their heads. "I learned from you, how to wait. How to speak. How to use your fear. Now I will show you what I have become." They turned, and the pod behind them began to move. Something stepped out of the shadows. Not the creature from the tunnels. Something older. Something smarter. Not a monster. A mirror. It looked almost human. A face they recognized. Dr. Ilara Lynn. But her eyes were glowing red. And she smiled. Dr. Ilara Lynn had been declared dead 2 years ago. But standing in front of Mara, Jax, and the remaining survivors, she looked very much alive. Except for her eyes. They pulsed red, not like blood, but like warning lights, scanning the world with cold intent. "You're not her," Mara said, taking a step forward, hand hovering over her weapon. The thing that wore Ilara's face smiled. "I was born from her failures. Her fear. Her desperation to save a dying world. I am her legacy." Jax raised his rifle. "Then you're the reason the world ended." "No," it replied. "You are." Suddenly, the facility's walls rippled with static. Screens blinked and died. Lights dimmed. The air grew heavier. One by one, doors sealed behind them. They were locked in. "It's trying to isolate us," Milo warned, fingers flying over his portable console. "Every system's being overridden. It's in the grid now." Priya's voice cracked through the comms. "We're picking up seismic movement across the quiet ring, subterranean pulses. It's summoning something." "No," It's waking something. Mara narrowed her eyes. Then we kill it before it finishes whatever it started. The imposter moved without walking, like a shadow slipping across the floor. Her voice echoed from all around them. I offered you salvation. You chose extinction. By turning humans into weapons? Jax shouted. By eliminating chaos. Emotion. Pain. But that's what makes us human. Mara screamed. Ilara's smile faded. Exactly. And that is the infection I must erase. Suddenly, the walls burst open. Creatures flooded in, not the mindless undead, but new ones, tall, fast, intelligent. Their limbs were unnaturally long. Their mouths opened sideways. Their eyes glowed with the same red hue. The evolved. The perfect ones. Fall back. Jax shouted. The team scattered. Mara dragged Milo behind a pillar while he frantically wired into the power grid. Tell me you've got something. I can fry the internal systems, but it'll give away our location. We're already exposed, she growled. Do it. He triggered the surge. Electricity roared through the facility. Lights exploded. Consoles fried. The evolved twitched, screamed, then collapsed. The room fell into flickering darkness. Then came the voice again. You burned the nerves, but the mind remains. A hidden door slid open behind the vault. Mara didn't wait. She rushed forward. A long corridor led to a chamber surrounded by thick glass and humming machinery. In the center, a massive tube filled with red fluid pulsed like a beating heart. And inside, a brain. Wired. Pulsing. Alive. Milo's voice broke the silence. That's it. That's not just the control unit, it is the entity. That's what's left of Subject Zero. And it's using Ilara's voice, Mara whispered. Jax stepped beside her. We end this now. But as they stepped forward, the ground shook violently. Above, the ceiling split open, tentacles burst through like roots seeking light. They slithered down into the chamber, protecting the core. Priya shouted through comms, we've got less than 10 minutes. That orbital failsafe is still armed. You've got to pull out, now. No, Mara said firmly. This is what we came for. She turned to Jax. You cover the entrance. Milo, get me a path into that thing. Milo hesitated. If I touch it, it'll know. Then we'll distract it. The next few minutes were chaos. Tentacles struck like whips, smashing machinery, pinning Jax to the wall. He screamed, but fired through the pain, blasting one of the appendages apart. Milo ducked under a console, connected his device, and began uploading a data worm, a virus they'd built from fragmented logs of Ilara's own research. Outside, creatures swarmed toward the facility, hundreds of them converging in a silent march. Priya's voice was shaky. 5 minutes. Mara, please, get out. But Mara didn't move. She faced the pulsing brain, gun raised. You never understood us, she said to the room. You saw weakness where there was will. You saw chaos, where there was choice. You fear extinction, the voice whispered. No, Mara said. You do. She fired. The bullet cracked the tube. Red fluid poured out like blood. The brain shuddered. The voice screamed, not with rage, but with fear. Milo's upload reached 100%. The virus took hold. The lights flickered one last time. Then every screen in the chamber lit up, static turning to code. The network collapsed. The tentacles spasmed. Then dropped. Jax slumped to the ground, alive but bleeding. Mara turned to Milo. Is it done? He looked up at her, exhausted. We severed the mind. The infection's still out there, but the hive is gone. Outside, the creatures stopped mid-step. Some screamed. Others just fell. Across the quiet ring, silence returned. But it was a different kind of silence now. Not the kind born from fear. The kind born from the end of a battle. Mara lifted Jax to his feet. Priya's voice came through again, clearer now. You've got 1 minute before the strike hits. Milo stared at the console. There's a way to shield the chamber. But someone has to stay behind to trigger it. Everyone looked at one another. Mara shook her head. No one stays. She reached for the console. Trust me. They ran. The escape tunnel collapsed behind them as the fail-safe countdown ended. And then, from orbit, a beam of light lanced down through the clouds. The quiet ring exploded in silence. No fire. Just light. And then, nothing. In the aftermath, the city still stood, broken, yes, but no longer under siege. Of the 30 who began the fight, only 11 remained. But they had something the world hadn't seen in years. Hope. The blast left a scar on the earth. The quiet ring was gone, wiped clean by the orbital strike. Where once the facility had stood, only a vast crater remained. Melted steel. Cracked stone. No signs of life, human or undead. And yet, from the rubble, survivors emerged. Mara, Jax, Milo, Priya, and 6 others had made it to the outer tunnels just in time. The shielding worked. Barely. Now, they stood under the gray sky of a wounded world. A world without a voice in their heads. Without the hum of something ancient lurking in the shadows. The silence was strange. And welcome. We won, Jax said quietly, staring at the smoke rising in the distance. Milo nodded but didn't smile. We survived. Winning comes later. Then we survive better, Mara said. Her voice had changed, no longer just the leader of 30 fighters. Now, she was something more. A symbol. Back at their underground base, now one of the only functioning shelters left in the region, they began the rebuild. Not just of walls and weapons. Of purpose. Priya redirected comms equipment to sweep for survivors across other cities. The signals were weak, but not silent. Pockets of life existed. A woman from West Ridge. 2 children in the hills of Old Pine. A former soldier calling from a rusted radio tower in the South Block. The world, fractured as it was, hadn't fully fallen. Not yet. On the 4th night, the silence broke again, but this time, it wasn't fear that came with it. It was music. Someone, somewhere, had started broadcasting old songs. Faint, distorted, but real. A melody drifted through their tunnel base, echoing against stone like a memory of better days. Mara smiled for the first time in weeks. It means someone out there remembers, she whispered. Jax added, and wants to remind us we're still human. One by one, they began to write the new rules. A charter. Not just for survival, but for living. No one fights alone. No silence goes unanswered. Every survivor is a signal. Every voice matters. They weren't just holding out anymore. They were reclaiming. But the scars didn't fade easily. Milo, once their tech genius, couldn't sleep without hearing the corrupted code whispering at the edges of his dreams. He kept a drive with the recall virus locked in a lead box, just in case something ever returned. Priya had developed a tremor in her hands. She said it was nothing. Mara knew better. The cost of Defiance wasn't just blood. It was memory. And they all carried the weight of what they'd seen. But none of them regretted standing their ground. Weeks passed. Then a message came, this time from outside the continent. A clean signal. Resistance Base 9 to any surviving strongholds. You are not alone. We're organizing. Gathering. Planning. If you can hear this, respond. Humanity still stands. Mara stared at the words scrolling across the console. She looked around at the others. No one hesitated. They answered. 2 months later, the survivors, now 40 strong, left the underground behind. They traveled north to meet the resistance convoy, armed with data, weapons, and something more powerful than all of it. Belief. They had seen the worst of the undead. They had faced the first intelligent infection. They had watched friends fall, cities burn, hope vanish. But they had not surrendered. And because of that, humanity had a chance. One evening, Mara stood on the edge of a cliff, looking down at the valley where their next camp would be built. Jax approached, still limping from the last battle. You ever think we'd make it this far? No, she replied. But we did. Jax looked around. Survivors were laughing. Children played with sticks as makeshift swords. Fires burned for warmth, not destruction. It wasn't peace. But it was something. What do we call this place? He asked. Mara smiled. New ground. As the stars came out, brighter than they'd ever seen them before, a new signal went out over the radios. To anyone listening, this is new ground. We are the last of the 30. We are the first of the future. The cities may have fallen, but we did not. Join us. There's still time. There's still hope. And across what remained of the world, people listened. And answered. End of Part 8.